Oh wow,
And
I got a tweet.
whoa, let's restart that.
Oh, my bad, my bad. I'll shut the hell up.
And we are live for the First Strike podcast. Let's plug our sponsor, FaceToFaceGames.com, the number one place to get your Magic the Gathering singles this week, 15% off all foil MTG. So if you've been waiting to get your hands on some foil cards, now's the time. Go to FaceToFaceGames.com. Tonight we got John, we got Elliot in the house as we talk about the new modern world and, of course, some early Throne of Eldraine spoilers. But the new modern world, it excites me. It really excites me, John, because last week you had talked about maybe joining the bigger mana side, going Valiquette, playing that. And I've even seen some tweets where people were asking on Twitter, "Hey, what deck should I play?" And then other people were like, "Yeah, big mana is good. Now play the big mana deck that beats the other big mana decks. Play Valiquette." So a lot of people repeating your advice, and then it culminated in it taking down an online MCQ. So I was like, "Whoa, what a profit!" What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts?
No, I definitely got lucky, but I think it speaks volumes that an excellent player who's like, who's a spike and who's like willing to play anything, whose range is very wide, like Ross Merriam, like ditch, like his like other pet decks and just like go pick up a deck cold. Like, if people don't know, Ross Merriam's also top four at the Star City Games Dallas event, and in fact, I believe that Jake Dershimer, who won the MCQ, tweeted that and thanked Ross Merriam for his list, which was on Twitch on Saturday, so he can net deck him. So I think it was very cool. I think Big Mana was where we were supposed to be. If you look at the coverage, it was like all the games are very slow, very grindy, just grinding out your 1.141 incremental advantages, and it's sickened me, but I mean, a lot of people enjoy it, and in a deck like in a format like that, like, just going over the top of everyone's great. So I'm not that surprised.
Elliot, were you surprised?
I think that the red green Valiquette deck's like borderline heinous and no one should play it. Uh, I think that like big mana is like usually pretty good in these like super mid-rangey formats, but like the Valiquette deck has trouble against people that are above 18 life. Like, yeah, you only need the eighth land, which isn't a big ask, but um, when you have decks pressuring you, it turns into a bigger ask, as well as when like counter magic gets in the mix because you lose your super fast goldfish potential. So I think the fact that a lot of the decks are playing more and more basic lands, relying on Arkham's Astrolabe for their mana fixing instead of automatically starting every game at like 17 life off of a fetch and a shock, and then you have the other mid-range decks pressuring you with like early batter skulls, which you don't really have a good way to deal with, like unless you want to play like roast in your main deck or something, or flame slash. Like you're going to be under pressure from a batter skull against a lot of the field. Teferi Time Raveler is like super played right now, and if you ever have a search for tomorrow, get got, you're just like dunzo. Um, so I like, despite the fact that it won the PTQ and was in the top 8 of the Open, between the top 32s of all of the events this weekend, so that's like the Open, the Classic, the PTQ, the Challenge, there were only 2 copies. That was it. So uh, coming from someone who's played the deck a lot in the past, I think this is not the time.
And to that, you say what, John?
Like I sympathize, Elliot. Like Valakut and Tron are the two decks that's always tempted me every time. Like I try to theorize what's good, what's well positioned in the format. I say, well, it's got to be Tron's time, or it's got to be Storm's time, or it's got to be Valakut's time. And every time I freaking test Valakut, I'm always going like 35-40% win rate, and it just the deck just like rolls over sometimes, and it doesn't feel great. I do understand the point about Stormforge Mystic, but 8 lands is like 36 damage, and that takes like one, two, three, four, yeah, four Stoneforge hits. And like I understand about the concern about that, but like I think the generic, like fundamental turn of modern's like considerably like slowed down. Like it's gotta be like 5 or 6 to be honest. Like there's barely any. I don't think fast combo is around anywhere right now. So like I think you have enough time to have countermeasures. I think Veil Summer has been a very good addition. Blue White used to be very good, and then with Field of Ruin and the Planeswalker turned pretty bad. Like countermeasures like Carnage Tyrant was okay, but still like susceptible to Wrath and all that. And Veil just gives you pretty good coverage against a lot of decks. And I wouldn't be surprised if that like kind of put a meaningful bump against the metagame. So I still think that it's a pretty good deck, and I'm considering like playing it in the MCQ or the Mox playoff this Saturday, and in my MCQ next Saturday. So I think it's still good.
Yeah, the issue with the 8th land is that unless you have a draw involving Prismatic Omen, and I can't even really think of the combination of cards that gets you there on turn 4 with that, is it pushes you back at least one turn. The fastest possible Valiquette draw to deal 18 damage is turn 4, 7 lands, Scape Shift for 18. So having to spend at minimum that extra turn because your opponent's at 19 or 20 or more because of a batter skull is actually like super detrimental, because these more often than not, these decks are also playing a ton of interaction to back up their Stoneforge. So in like the blue decks, that's going to be Spell Queller, Force of Negation, Cryptic Command, maybe even like Mana Leak, which isn't the best at that point in the game, but could be Logic Knot instead. Who knows? And then like if they're instead on like a black package, like the white black deck, they're going to be playing discard spells, which like historically the saying goes you can't Thoughtseize the top of the deck. One of the reasons Scape Shift was so prevalent in Modern for so long is because Jund was one of the better decks, like going back 4 or 5 years even, and you'd get into a top deck war where someone would draw a Tarmogoyf and an Inquisition, and you would draw maybe a Mountain and then a Primeval Titan. So that's how you gained your percentage points. So not to say that Stoneforge backed up by Thoughtseize is unbeatable, but you're going to find yourself in positions where, because you can't win the game on turn 4, you're having trouble against these decks, which historically was not the case. Historically, if you had the turn 4 kill, you were good.
I definitely hear you. I just think that like this is to be seen in the next, like this is week 1 of a new format, to be clear. But I do think that the fundamental turn has slowed down at least 1 or 2 turns. And I do get your concern, but I think just a big mana deck that trumps other big mana deck is like a very attractive proposition to me. So I do get this. I think Stoneforge is pretty positive for Valiquette in general. Just because like they do have the disruption sweep, but even like the 6/6 trampler is like pretty hard to beat right now in Modern. So like even that, like I realize Escape Shift is only 1/2 of the win conditions. So I think Primeval Titan in general is pretty good right now. Francisco, I'm sorry I butchered your name, but the noted Amulet streamer has been doing quite well with Amulet Titan as well, and that's another big mana deck that can potentially have an advantage over the other big mana decks as well as mid-range. So I think macro archetype-wise, like big mana is very good right now, and it might not be Valiquette, but I would like to dwell in the big mana area at the very least and go from there.
Felix, who's watching us through my Facebook page, this is live. I'm reading your comment right now. Elliot, do you see potential in some of many of John's past creations? I think we there was a bit of chat about Neoform in our First Strike hosts Facebook chat.
First, I want to say apologize to Felix. I didn't mean to trash talk Scape Shift. I'm innocent. I know he loves that deck. But regarding Neoform, I think that John may have like hung it up too quickly in this format. I think that there definitely is an increased number of Force of Negations, which could be problematic, which obviously is problematic. But I don't know, maybe there's like a way to like slow the deck down by like 1/10 of a turn so that you can get like Veil of Summer be an important card in the post-board games and play like many more copies of that instead of Pact of Negation. Because I think one of the bigger issues against blue-white is that you can have the draws that beat a single piece of interaction, but with Pact of Negation, for example, but Veil of Summer is just going to get them all at once, which is super important, I think. And like I don't know, John can speak for himself. I don't know if he's even played a reasonable amount of Neoform in the new meta, but I think that's 0. He gave the sign. I think like that's the deck you want to start on, because against the Thoughtseize half of Stoneforge decks, you're going to crush them. Against the blue-based Stoneforge decks, at the end of the day, they only have 4 Force of Negations in the 75 max. They don't play like that. They don't play that many like spell pierces. They play some copies of Spell Snare, which can be troubling, but they're going to be tapping it on 2 as often as they can. So I think it's like not the end of the world for Neoform, and I'm sad for my friend that he's not at least trying it.
You make a lot of good points there, Elliot. And just to be clear, part of my doom Sain is for theatrics, Twitter's theatrics. Also, like it's a new format. I just want to like I've had so many like bucket list decks like Living In and Goblins. I always wanted to try, so I felt just like let's explore kind of thing. Even like Dredge without Faithless Looting, which has potential, but it's like has a lot of flaws. I do agree that it's a plus that like these blue-white X decks have gone away from Narset and Dovin's Veto, which were actually the hardest cards to beat. Because if you wait to sculpt your hand, Narset is a bomb. But if you like jam, it might be like Dovin's Veto plus like a Force Negation. But for Force decks, that's fine. Like in Legacy, like Ant and Test routinely beat Force of Wills just through discard. We don't have the luxury to play the interactive like discard package, but we can play a slower game and like sculpt our hand more with 4 Pact Negations and 2 Veil Summer as well. And these like big mana decks I was like previously endorsing, like Neoform just like farms them. And I'm not sure who said it, but I do agree with the adage that Magic is all about, for any given week, doing the most powerful things from axis of attack that no one's thinking about. And I was actually looking at AdNauseam. I thought the deck was dead, but some people, Will Pulliam was doing very well, and it does make sense in theory that a fast-ish spell combo that doesn't care about the graveyard could do well right now. So, I'm personally looking at graveyard and combo right now, even though my head says big mana. Who knows where it goes? But it's week 2 of a new format. It's dynamic, and I think it's pretty exciting to kind of explore.
So, John, just to be clear, just to get people up to speed who might have been just tuning in now, you are highly considering playing Valiquette at your next big tournament.
So I think big mana is still a very good place to be in. You punish those Stoneforge Mystic decks. Big mana that has game against burn is actually very good, and that's a unique characteristic that Amulet Titan has always had, whereas Valiquette and Tron, they're closer now, but they're still a dog to burn, for example. And people that saw the Star City Games Dallas performance, where the Lotus Box guys all crushed with burn, and burn was the most represented deck in day 2. I think people are going to see that, and at the very least, burn is going to be on everyone's mind, if not people are playing it. So I think like Amulet, if you can play it, is in a well-positioned spot. I think fast combo, spell combo, if there is one that's good, I think that's where I want to be ultimately. I'm not comfortable with Storm. AdNauseam, I got to give it a try, but that's like the level 2 for me right now, and I'm not even considering the Stoneforge Mystic decks, except for the Andy special, the Copycat, Saheeli Copycat deck with Stoneforge Mystic that presents an off-axis plan B. I think I'm interested in that, but otherwise, like, yeah, it's either like Amulet or big mana or spell combo that's actually good, which is like it might not exist, but conceptually it makes sense.
But did you play Stoneforge when it was in competitively, when Stoneforge was in standard, John?
No, I didn't play during the Cobblade era, but I've heard horror stories about the mirrors and all that, and it's kind of sounds like a terrifying standard form.
That Copycat that makes me think of when you had Stoneforge and Splinter Twin as part of a deck. There was like a Jeskai deck that played everything.
Twin Blade.
Yeah, Twin Blade. It was, and this is like the modern version. That again, the appeal is that it's insanely good and also has a combo kill that is also amazing. Elliot, where's your head at when it comes to what would you think would be a good starting point for people who have upcoming important tournaments, especially the Toronto MCQ that's coming up in I believe 2 weeks. So,
well, if I had to play a tournament tomorrow, I would probably play the Jeskai Copycat deck. I think that it's one of those decks similar to the Devoted Druid decks where it's now attacking on 2 angles in a much more effective way. Stoneforge is just like a 6-card package to that deck that just gives it the ability to win fair games. And it's just like you said, where you play like with the Twin Blade decks, where you just play like your Stoneforge on 2, and you threaten to either put a Batterskull in play or Splinter Twin them, and so they have to like try to kill your Stoneforge, or they're just going to die to the Twin combo or something. So it really puts your opponent in a bind, as well as the cards just synergize well with the Stoneforge package. You have Felidar Guardian to reset your Batterskull. You have Saheeli that can get a Stoneforge with haste to put the equipment into play right away, which I think is like actually a really relevant line, especially if you start playing more than one Batterskull, which I've seen some people do. Maybe like a 1-1 split in the sideboard for when you need to get like super grindy. So I think that's an interesting avenue to explore. Outside of that, like where I would go forward, I'm kind of intrigued by AdNauseam. That's kind of a deck that's always been on my radar, but like is barely missing out on being good for whatever reason. Like there was a while where Is It Phoenix was one of the best decks in Modern, and you could farm Is It Phoenix with AdNauseam every single time. But there are obviously a bunch of other rough matchups, but AdNauseam is one of those decks where if people are playing Stoneforge Mystic, you don't care about them hitting you with lifelink and going up to 30 life or whatever. You're going to deal, I think it's like 40 or 50 something damage. So a reasonable amount of damage with your combo to win, or you just Lad Maniac them, obviously. Of note, we were talking about Force of Negation being super important for the Neo brand deck. It's less effective versus AdNauseam because you can instant speed combo. So you can go off on their turn. You have to use the Lightning Storm kill then, or at least have like the Jace or Lab Maniac in play, but it turns their Force of Negations into cancel. So that's like huge upside for you. And as John typed in our chat, it's also not a 5-for-1 when you cast a Force of Negation against AdNauseam. Although it could be if there's some Lotus Petal or Lotus Blooms in play. Who knows? So yeah, I think those would be like, tomorrow I would play Stoneblade. If I have a couple weeks to prepare, I would try out things like AdNauseam. I would try to do some more combo stuff. I can't believe, I don't know, we've been live for like 30 minutes and I'm just now mentioning the Whir deck that Harlan Fear has been like farming the SCG tour with. Someone said a stat like his copy of the deck has made the top 8 of every SCG Open it's been played in, whether it's in his hands or one time he lent it to someone who top 8'd with it. So this is one of those times where I think it's not just Harlan being a master of the deck, which he obviously is, but this deck's like borderline absurd. People tried like the Stoneforge package in it at first, but that's just kind of not as good as being devoted to the combo and playing Goblin Engineer, which is a little better in that regard at least. So that's probably another deck I would go to if I have these 2 weeks to prepare.
John, did you? Maybe it wasn't with you, but I think I saw someone interact on Twitter. I think it was you talking to someone who has been having success with AdNauseam, or am I mistaking you for someone else?
Yeah, that's actually Will Pulliam, and I think it was yesterday when he posted that he was 21-4 with AdNauseam, and he said like it's been like an easy time farming things. And Will Pulliam has had pretty good success in scarcity games, as well as online, just like playing these like off the wall decks. So like I did definitely take notice, and like if the format is full of Burn and Monarch Phoenix, which debatable, but Burn definitely, like Burn is like a buy for AdNauseam. And if formats are just like super grindy and super slow, the clock is not there with like the banned Stoneblade or the 4-color Stoneblade dorky decks or Soul Herder and whatnot, then like nothing, like very little decks punish nonsense more than AdNauseam, in my opinion. The reason why I think people thought that AdNauseam was dead was because, one, I think the power creep was thought to have left the deck, which debatably it is true. And two, the 2 decks which they farmed before were Tron and Blue-White. Tron gained a very important tool in Karn the Great Creator, which can shut off Pentap Prism and Lotus Bloom. And they can also just like win the game through like the Lattice Lock, which I don't know how much it affects them, but I don't think it's a buy anymore. And Blue-White, which I believe also was close to a buy, has gained so many tools. Force Negation, Dovin's Veto, Teferi Time Raveler to shut off your Pact Negation, Field of Ruin to shut off your Boseiju, which has gone from a staple to unplayable, and like cards like Jace, which lets you like keep your card advantage up, and it's like a very lethal win condition. So I think that matchup went from a buy to slightly unfavorable now. So that's why people they stopped seeing play. In addition to Grixis Shadows being a deck, but there's a lot of slow, unremarkable mid-range decks right now, all centered around Stoneforge Mystic. So I think I think AdNauseam actually could be good. It's worth testing for sure, and I'm going to test.
One last thing before we switch. We mentioned it at the tail end of last episode, and I had planned it to be the bulk of my Table for Two podcast, which is about thoughts and considerations that people don't think about when choosing a deck. And John, you became a huge part of that episode, and I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed it and that you agreed with a lot, if not everything we said. So where would you use this type of discussion moving forward? Would AdNauseam fit into a high variance type deck where you have really good matchups and maybe not so good, maybe perhaps a decent fail rate? Would this fit in that, if I want to win a tournament type deck, would you put that in that category?
So I think AdNauseam's distribution of fail and success cases are a bit flatter, meaning that even if you don't do anything for a while, you have enough cantrips and scries and all that, you'll eventually get there more often than not. Whereas the Neoform's profile of outcomes are very polar. Like maybe 70% of the times you win by turn 5, and 30% of the times you just don't win, period, and you get sent to Shadow Realm. In terms of matchups, I think it does have a lot of like lopsided matchups, but the lopsided matchups are pretty few in between, I think. Jund has traditionally been a predator to AdNauseam, but the change from Dark Confidant to Ren, I think, helps greatly. I think like that matchup is like close to even now. Grixis Shadows is still unwinnable, so don't bother. Infect is still around, but in less numbers. That matchup is still unwinnable. Don't play things like Darkness, just punt it. But otherwise, like there are also buys like Valiquette, for example. Valiquette can never beat AdNauseam. Burn and like any like dorky 3-color like mid-range decks that can't kill ASAP. Like they just get farmed by AdNauseam. So it does have like volatile like form matchup spreads, but in a good way, and it does have a good floor because of the cantrips and whatnot. So you won't feel as bad as you would if you keep failing with Neoform. So that's also a consideration. I'm not kidding. Like some people just don't want to play Neoform because they don't want to feel bad of just like drawing nothing when you're one card away for like 10 turns. Whereas AdNauseam, that's like very unlikely to happen.
Right, and Elliot mentioned that like with other decks, it's just a different type of feel bad, and like John, if you don't rip your Thoughtseize or whatever in a certain situation, or you don't curve out in a specific way in a certain matchup, where would you put Valiquette in that spectrum? Would you consider it a deck with a high variance that would allow you to spike the tournament?
I definitely don't think it's as extreme as either Neoform or AdNauseam, but it's sort of approaching that when you compare it to a deck like Jund. It obviously has its very good matchups like Jund, but on the other side, I don't want to say 0%, but it like Burn is an awful matchup. Like Infect is like really not that good. But at the end of the day, also of the decks we've sort of mentioned in this regard of super variable matchups, Valiquette can play a lot with how it's built to affect that. There's a lot of people going around that will play like no interaction, a bunch of Hour of Promises, and try to be a Goldfish deck. There's people who play like 4 Bolt and then maybe another interaction spell like Anger of the Gods in the main deck. Some people will play a utility creature to Summoner's Pact for, whether that's Tireless Tracker or Obstinate Bailout, will help in a variety of matchups, obviously. So the Valiquette deck does have a lot more play to it, which can kind of swing that in whichever favor you want. But I think that you kind of get less bailed out by your deck in the bad matchups when you're playing Valiquette. One of the draws to playing Neoform is that even if you play against your theoretical worst matchup, it's possible to turn one kill them. And the same is sort of true for AdNauseam, which isn't as fast, but has potential to turn 3 goldfish kill people. So even if you're playing your worst possible playing against Infect, if they have a turn 3 killer on the draw or maybe a bit slower hand, you can kill them. It's not impossible to win. So versus the other hand, Valiquette's going to have a lot more trouble doing that.
All right. We've got a shout out from PSAMs in the chat for Tropical Merfolk. I saw Nikachu tweeting this week. Looks like he might be trying to integrate Stoneforge Mystic in a new Merfolk list and calling it Stonefolk. So I'm curious to see if we see Merfolk make any bit of noise. It's likely going to randomly win a tournament as it usually does. But shoutouts to PSAMs. And so with that said, let's get into some of the Throne of the Eldraine stuff. John posted in our private message to us about the trailer when it came out. I watched it. I loved it. I loved how they're doing the trailers recently. Last time it was Linkin Park themed, and now we have like a Shrek themed type trailer, and I imagine it's going to start trending and doing well on YouTube as well, so that gives a lot of eyeballs onto Magic, so I'm always happy when that happens. Elliot, your first impressions?
I think the set's really interesting. I definitely love the trailer. I think it's super cool that they're doing these now. Other than the core set, if you exclude that, this is kind of the second one in a row we've had for a story-driven set, so it definitely gets more eyeballs on the game and gets people excited. In terms of the actual set, I think the mechanic adventure is super cool. I hope that there's like some more playable cards. I think so far the cards haven't been too fantastic. Order of Midnight, which is the Gravedigger-esque card, I think is going to be exceptional limited, but past that, who knows? I am, however, like sort of confused by the set because there's so many cards that are in just the Planeswalker decks. I have no idea like what's what at this point, so it's hard to get a good grasp on spoiler season. I know that like as the cards were coming out earlier today, as we were getting screen grabs from the arena client, I think I got excited about like the first few night tribal cards, but then there was just like 50 of them, so that kind of gets boring. So I kind of hope the set, like some of those cards are not in the main set, so it's not just like night tribal versus fairy tribal. That's the sealed format or whatever. But I'm definitely excited. There's like some really cool cards. I'm really looking forward to the limited format because I think that the adventure cards are going to play a much bigger role there than they will at any time in constructed, just because of the adventure sort of working a little bit like evoke, a little bit like kicker, which obviously will play out more in limited, just the fact that the games tend to go longer.
Actually, Elliot, one thing, like the introduction of food tokens in Throne, I tweeted out that I hope food does better than bricks. And I don't remember when you joined the show, Elliot, but when we spoke Quarry Hauler, I was excited for the brick mechanic because we spoiled that along with, I believe, Pyramid of the Pantheon. And I didn't play enough limited that format because I thought they were going to do something cool where bricks were going to, like, I don't know, build your house of some sort. Didn't really feel the flavor of that mechanic. Felt like it was a waste, even though I think P. Sam's said he loved bricks and he tagged you. I'm hoping food feels more flavorful and I remember it more fondly after playing the set.
Well, I mean, on like the 2 cards we have spoiled so far that use the food counters, they seem infinitely more useful than brick counters. Even just that rare they spoiled on the first day, the Gilded Goose, that seems like a really interesting card. It's like Bird of Paradise once, and then you can pay some mana into it, make food tokens. Interestingly, like in the late game, it's just 4 mana, gain 3 life every turn, which can help edge out some games. So that card's pretty sweet. I hope there's more ways to use and importantly make multiple food outside of Brawl. there were some cards spoiled that like care about only make them for like the number of opponents you have, which is obviously super cool for Brawl. Do whatever you want there, I don't care. But I'm hoping they have some sort of application in Standard.
John, before we get into some of the specific cards, let's just get a few words from you for your first impressions of the set, of the flavor.
See, personally, people have been complaining about, hey, you know, like Wizards, why don't you like release the full mechanics rather than have people speculate about what Adventure is all about and what the themes are all about. But I personally kind of enjoyed how they've handled this pre-release here, the previous season, like, you know, just like teasing us with like, you know, cool looking cards here and there. Like, I think the design is awesome, and I think the video was very humorous, and you know, it's not taking itself too seriously, which I like, as that still introduces the theme. And I particularly like the card design, like the adventure cards look a bit look gorgeous, which I think it's like, wow, it's that's a new design. It might be a bit confusing on Arena. I'd love to see how they're going to do it, but it looks very, very cool. And this kind of like reminds me of, like, you know, I think we've had like the Gatewatch fatigue, to be honest here. Ever since I've started playing near like Shadows of Innistrad, it's all about the same story, same planes, et cetera. But this is like a complete like throwback. You know, like we forget that Magic the Gathering is like a fantasy card game, and this like kind of like puts a exclamation mark on that. And the flavor seems great. Some of the artwork seems like amazing. Food, like there's a goose, there's a glass slipper, and all that. It's just like it kind of appeals to like the kid in you that is playing this like kids children's card game. So from the first looks of it, like it looks really cool, and you know, like it's probably gonna get me more interested in like playing a limited format, or at least a standard format, just because like it has my attention right now.
Okay, so if people in chat want us to go over some specific cards, do so now, because we're just going to pick a few. Start with some Planeswalker love. Garrett Cursed Huntsman. 6 mana, 4 colors, green and a black. Starts with 5 loyalty. It's 0 ability. Create 2/2 black and green wolf creature tokens with, when this creature dies, put a loyalty counter on each Garrett you control. -3, destroy target creature, draw a card. So it can come in and kill a guy right off the bat. And -6, you get an emblem with creatures you control, get +3/+3, and have trample. And are you gentlemen excited about this card?
Hell yeah. It's very much in the Ob Nixilis Reignited template of +1 card advantage, -3 kill a thing, ultimate, you know, less than some of the others, but ultimate win the game. And I'm famous for having never used hyperbole or exaggerate at all in my entire life, but this card's basically Elspeth Sun's Champion. Obviously a little worse than that, but the fact that it makes 2 bodies, I think, is like super relevant, because you get less punked out by like a single removal spell to kill your cool Planeswalker. The fact that it can destroy like any creature and draws a card is like, you know, a +2. So that's super relevant as well. I think, you know, the fact that we have Vraska rotating, which fit a similar role, not that Vraska was particularly playable towards the end of its life in Standard, but this does a good job of filling what gap may open up in the black-green decks. I think it's significantly better than Ugin, the Ineffable, if you're already in black and green. Even though it seems pretty similar, like Ugin just misses the ability to end the game immediately, which this has. I'm just I was super excited about this, and I was joking with friends that like this is Elspeth Sun's Champion. And then, of course, maybe to spoil something we're going to talk about later in the show, but the next set we're going to is Theros, and they specifically mention the Underworld. So if we don't get an Elspeth Sun's Champion, or sorry, just an Elspeth in general in the next Theros set, I'll eat a First Strike t-shirt live on air.
Thoughts on Garrick, John?
Just looks like a staple in Standard. Like I know it's 6 mana, and I realize that Liliana Dreadhorde General didn't see as much play as we thought, but I just think this is like a mid-range breaker. People were talking about it on the MTG Legacy Reddit about how this is a Nick Fit card, with the joke being that every fatty high mana cost card is a Nick Fit card. But yeah, this definitely seems very promising, and I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to add too much more to the actual analysis as after Elliot, but it's also very good, cool to see Garrick finally show up again. And people were asking, in War of Spark, where the hell's Garrick? And they said they had a plan, and they did. So it's pretty exciting.
Here's a good question from chat for you, John. Do you think the food tokens will be edible in the premium packs?
If it's not, then I'll riot.
I mean, it'd be awesome. Thoughts on Midnight Clock if a control deck exists? So Midnight Clock is 3 mana artifact, 1 blue, 2 colorless. When you tap it, it adds a blue mana. It's like a mana rock. 2 colors and a blue for an ability that's put an hour counter on Midnight Clock. At the beginning of each upkeep, put an hour counter on Midnight Clock. When a 12-hour counter, love the flavor, is put on Midnight Clock, shuffle your hand and graveyard into your library, then draw 7 cards, exile Midnight Clock.
John, do you want to call this one unplayable, or should I?
I think the flavor is so freaking cool. This type of card, I just really need it to be like lower cost, so I can just like plop this and set up camp like really early before your opponent can interact with it, kind of thing. This being 3 mana, probably not a thing, and I don't think like the payoff is like strong enough to do like comboing things in eternal formats. So probably not playable, but I'm happy to hear otherwise if you think so.
Someone's going to build a really cool Brawl deck with it, and that's the extent of the play it'll see.
It's just so expensive. Do you even, like, you don't even play this in Limited because it's so slow?
If the Limited format's really slow enough, this is, like, a worst-case bad manolith, so if it's, like, super slow, where you want the ramp spell, and then, like, maybe you re-gas up at the end, then, like, it's okay. So I wouldn't totally write it off, but man, if I open Midnight Clock instead of like, there was like a blue rare that's maybe Planeswalker deck only, but it's something like 5 mana, 5/4 flyer with 4 mana, make a 1/1 draw card. Like if I open Midnight Clock instead of that, what am I doing here?
Thinking about some of the adventure cards, my friend, I guess we had on the show, Pascal Maynard, tweeted like, how can you make a game less likely to be good on mobile? Create a card that's essentially 2 cards. And John mentioned it when we talked about them, how he was curious about how they would look on Arena. But now I'm going to throw this out here. Like, do you actually think it's in their plans to ever port to mobile? As someone that, again, Elliot would know this, I'm playing Teamfight Tactics like crazy, and there's this strong Teamfight Tactics crowd and this strong Underlords crowd that says, well, Underlords on mobile, that's why it's better. But me, now that I've been playing it a lot, I just feel like some experiences, I'm okay with it sticking to the desktop. I actually don't think I care that much if Magic never comes to mobile. I don't know if that's a hot take, but Elliot, your thoughts, like with these cards that they're designing, like, and how the game is, do you think it's ever going into mobile?
I think that the fact that there's these cards doesn't really play too much into how it's going to work on mobile. We already had, like, during the beta at least, we had the Aftermath cards, which is already super confusing. There's like split cards, which these could function similarly to on Arena. I know that the Brawl decks are already live, so maybe people are already casting Aftermath card or adventure cards, and it works differently. But there's no reason why you can't just like drag layer you're going to cast the spell, then pick which half you're going to do. It's not that complicated. In terms of how it works on mobile, I think that the scope of Magic is way too big to do it on mobile. When you look at a game like Hearthstone, it's very well confined to, I think you have like 7 board spots. You have a max hand size of 9. Nothing ever gets bigger than that. Versus Magic, you have potential infinite combos even in Standard. you have decks that are going to make 30 tokens, and you're going to be like scrolling on your phone for 8 years just to select all your attackers, and that's not even with this like potentially complex mechanic. So I think that Magic is doomed to be cards and desktop, and at the very least, this won't be what kills its chance of being a mobile game.
John, I just don't think they have plans to port it ever, almost. John, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, in a vacuum, I think like the next growth area that's like a natural conclusion would be the mobile platform. But Elliot makes a good point there. Like Magic is a lot more complex, and the range of outcomes or board states is just like so wide because of its complexity. Can you imagine playing Neoform on the like,
what are you doing?
Draw like 80 cards. You draw like 60 cards, and you can't even see half of it. Or if you're making like infinite like copycat combos and you can't see, and your phone might bug out or whatnot. I think it might not be possible because like there's like technical like limitations. So like even though I think it's cool, and I think it's like Hearthstone with Hearthstone and other prominent games being on mobile. That it would only make sense for Magic to be on mobile. Like I accept that there might just be limitations that would prevent it, and it won't be in their plans like for a long time, if ever, which is unfortunate. But I can see that being the case.
I think dream case scenario, I hope they come up with some sort of mobile game that brings people to the brand, to the core game, and that's at its core, that's what we want. I'm sure, John, it's just more players playing Magic because that's good for people like us. That's good for everyone. What's that line? Of tide rises all boats, I guess. And so I really do feel that way. But again, with now my experience with Teamfight and Underlords, I'm just like I don't actually care. I just want to play what I love to play on my desktop, and that's fine. And I reserve my mobile experience time with like Twitter and tweeting at you and Facebook chat, and that's good. That's good for that stuff. Well, let's go through another card. Oko, Thief of Crowns, Simic card, 3 mana, 1 colorless, 1 green, 1 blue. Planeswalker Oko. +2, create. It starts with 4 loyalty counters. +2, create a food token. +1, target artifact or creature loses all abilities and becomes a green elk creature with base power and toughness 3/3. And -5, exchange control of target artifact or creature you control and target creature an opponent controls with power 3 or less. John, any early impressions on this?
Yeah, Twitter user Liam MTG first, or to me anyways, first pointed out the combination with Dreadhorde Invasion on this, and these are 2 mana and 3 mana cards. And if you can play a turn 2 Invasion and turn 3 Oko, then you have like infinite 4/4s, or not infinite, but you get a 4/4 every turn, which is kind of a cool interaction. Like I kind of like that they're pushing these like 3 mana planeswalkers, and I think they're starting to learn that to not push them too much or it'll ruin everything. And I think they arguably violated that with Narset and Teferi, but this looks interesting. It's a fair one. I'm not sure how good it'll be in standard, but that particular interaction with the Dreadhorde Invasion definitely piques my interest, if nothing else.
Well, we already talked about Daddy Garrick, so I'm there's no way to improve Tropical Merfolk from where it is currently. There's no need for this.
Is that because it's perfect?
I tried to talk to PSAMs. I thought, someone posted a blue-white Stoneblade Merfolk, and I thought, what if we have the Bant Stoneblade Tropical Merfolk, Tropical Bant Blade Merfolk, and I got shut down. It's already perfect. Why do you need to add another color? It's useless. Stoneforge, not even a Merfolk. Batterskull makes germs, not Merfolk. What's the point?
John, any other cards you want to talk about?
You're muted.
No, I'm not. I'm
my bad.
I'm just trying to control my volume with you guys and the volume through Twitch, and I forgot to click it for the Twitch one. We'll be fixed post editing, hopefully. John, did you want to talk about anything else, like this Royal Signs card, if you've seen it?
Yes, that is precisely the card I was looking at. So the Royal Scions is a 1 blue red planeswalker, 5 loyalty, which is very high for a 3-mana planeswalker. +1, draw a card and discard a card. So loot, that's great. +1, target creature gets +2/+0 and gains first strike and trample until end of turn. Hello, Death Shadow. -8, you draw 4 cards, and when you do, this card deals damage to any target equal to the number of cards in your hand. So as I said, I like that they're pushing like these 3-mana planeswalkers, and I like that the mana and the color requirements pretty restrictive. So not all decks like Narsa, for example, can readily play it, just like is a Phoenix did or Blue White did, for example. I think there's something here. I can't quite put my finger on it, but 3 mana, 5 loyalty that can go up to 6 it's already high, and people criticize the card for not having the ability to protect itself, but the high loyalty I think is a form of protection by itself. The repeatable loot is pretty good. My friend Warren has been working on Blue Red Living End. It might be good there as a grindy engine. It might be good in like Grixis Grishel brand or something. Like I know WotC banned graveyard decks, but maybe I'm wrong. I just think that for 3 mana, having a repeated loot engine is like very exceptional. I don't know what the shell is yet. The first shell that came to my mind was Grixis Shadows, because they already play Jace Vryn's Prodigy as a grindy planeswalker, and the first strike and trample, they're not double strike like Temur Battle Rage. I still think it can be pretty good here. I asked a noted Grixis Shadows specialist who won the Modern Challenge last week, actually, with Shadows, Ari Zax. I'm sorry if I butcher your name. And he thinks like other people, everyone who thinks this card is playable in Shadows is insane. 3 mana versus 2 is a lot in an 18 land deck, and it's not double strike, which is like all reasonable points, but I kind of feel like there's a lot of potential with this deck, just like through raw power level and the fact that it's 3 mana. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a staple in standard, and if it's like if it becomes a player in actually modern as well. So that's my take.
Good take. I just think I've got some people on Facebook saying this is. I think they're talking about this card sealed playable. Like how annoying would it be to face this card in limited? I mean, I already hate in the old days. I hate having when people discovered how good Merfolk Looter effects are. It's just annoying to see it continually go on. And like, how do you even kill this thing if it drops on turn 3?
It's a turn 3 6 loyalty planeswalker. That by itself is very hard to kill, and it'll just keep drawing you into action, which I think is very good. In limited, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a bomb.
Yeah, this is no. This is a super bomb. I mean,
sealed playable might be the most accurate thing said about this card on the stream so far.
This is ridiculous. That's what I want to say.
If this sees any play in standard, I'll also eat a first strike shirt live on air.
Whoa!
It's so bad.
Did you get that card?
Okay, so first of all,
it's pretty high loyalty. Well, we can't wait for the top. I can't wait for the top 5 list. But go ahead, Elliot.
Okay, so I'm actually so we're losing Enigma Drake, keeping Crackling Drake, I believe. So there's like not. And I guess we keep Arclight Phoenix, but there's not that like many ways to abuse this in standard. We like historically like the decks that want to be looting are not the decks that want to be giving things first strike and trample and +2/+0. So they're kind of really at odds there. And then on top of that, like you're going to -8 your planeswalker to kill a thing and draw 4 cards. That sounds really great, except it's happening on like turn 8 if your planeswalker survived that long. So I think this is like borderline a pipe dream to ultimate it, because again, it doesn't protect itself. It doesn't even like create mana or anything. I think if you want to play like a crackling Drake deck, or as P Sams has reminded me in the Twitch chat, Niv Mizzet ever heard of it? Why are you just playing the 3-mana Chandra? That card protects itself and does other things that benefit your strategy. I just think that like better cards than this exist, better cards than this have existed, and it's awful. Jace Vryn's Prodigy exists in the Grixis Shadow decks not because it loots, but because it provides additional card advantage. You flip your Jace Vryn's Prodigy because you fill your graveyard up quickly, and then you cast your important spells back. You cast your Fatal Push again. This just loots and turns a land into, I don't know, a Mishra's Bauble or something. like looting isn't powerful.
I think in the right context, it's very powerful, but without faithless looting, like I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure there are decks that does want a good density of this, like for a graveyard combo or something like that. I realize that 3 mana is a lot in modern, but this is like the first of its repeatable effect, and like I understand that a lot of decks do not want the first strike ability with the loot ability, but I would just like think of it as gravy rather more than anything here. And yeah, like I just think like a repeatable 3 mana looting effect that has other benefits. There's got to be something there. Like I don't know off the top of my head. Like Shadows was one, but I can see the reasons for not for that card not to be good there. But I do feel like there's use there somewhere. I just can't put my finger on it.
Also, to bring up the like Jace Vryn's Prodigy thing again, I played a lot of that card in Standard, and you would play decks with Jace Vryn's Prodigy that played 12 or more fetch lands, and there was absolutely nothing worse than having to loot 3 times with Jace. If you ever had to loot that many times, the game was over because it sucks so much. You needed to be flipping that thing immediately and getting your advantage out of it. Like, I don't know. Maybe this is the type of card you just have to like play with to either understand how awful it is or have like some super great context for this card to be playable. Man, it sucks.
To be clear, I don't think this is a fair card. Like I want to be doing something fair with it. I'm honestly not sure what it is. maybe it's dredge. No, that's too chunky. I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'm pretty sure. I want to work on it. But Wizards once again did ban all graveyard decks, so brewing with the graveyard is harder. Thank you, Wizard of the Coast, but you can't keep a good graveyard mage down too long.
Oh man, Ellie, you put on a very good case. Like you've convinced me. You've convinced me that just by looking at it now that it's not as good as I think it is. But damn, do I not want to face this in limited? That's for sure.
For sure. This card's a nightmare in limited.
It's like, damn. I hate really early drops that are hard to deal with, and this is just one of hopefully not too many in this format. Well, it's Mythic, at least. I think that will do. Okay, maybe we'll comment. They announced the upcoming sets of 2020 on Twitch stream. Theros Beyond Death, Iconia Lair of Behemoths, Core 2021, and Zendikar Rising. So, going back to Zendikar again, I mean every Zendikar set has been sweet. So, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really loving again the direction of this particular set. I think it's going to maybe attract a demographic of gamers that have never paid attention to Magic before with that trailer, with the gingerbread thing, because some of the past art, I feel, when I think about how my wife recently actually, who never plays video games, but because Esports Central opened, we tried League of Legends, and she got hooked because she got hooked to some of the female characters in the game and how they look, how they're branded. And I think like this gingerbread trailer really, like, that's where I'm thinking about that it could attract people that might not like the whole darkness vibe of, you know, and the sexy Liliana and Chandras of the past and stuff like that, and might gravitate towards something a little more cute, even though, of course, the ending of that trailer isn't exactly like the cutest. Not everything is all happy, sunshine and rainbows. But I do see a lot of positive of going a different direction with this set, and I'm really looking forward to it. Any anticipation from you, Elliot, on the upcoming sets? Like, do you care?
Well, I am super excited for the Elspeth that's coming, and if it's not coming again, I'm now I'll eat 2 shirts now. But I think it's actually super cool that you brought that up because I didn't really think about it. But the War of the Spark trailer video, as exciting as it was for Magic players, it's kind of sucks if you know nothing about the game. Like, we thought it was super cool because we know that Liliana is typically one of the good guys, and she was fighting back, getting her power to fight against Nicol Bolas, who, like, I don't know, it from like 10 feet away, not knowing anything about Magic, it kind of seems like just filled with like superhero tropes, and you're like, when you're not really invested, it's nothing. Versus looking at this trailer, there's almost nothing purely Magic related. Like, yes, as fans, we know that that's Garrick, and that's super exciting that he's back, but you don't need to know it's Garrick to get the idea that he's some big bad guy. So I think it's super cool, and I think it could definitely draw people in. I think it's kind of lame that we're doing like 2 revisits again next year,
Right.
with Theros and Zendikar. I don't, obviously we have no idea what's on their plate for their future after that, but it's always fun, like, as we're talking about getting excited about this new adventure mechanic, and like, this is a new world, so people were super hyped to hear we were getting fairies back in this new world. That's gonna be like super exciting, and it kind of sucks that we're only getting 1 new world next year. Again, I'm not someone who's super invested in the lore, so maybe people who are on that side of Magic care more about going back to planes like Zendikar and Theros, where we have an established story and are following up and learning new things. But some of the return sets can get a little boring, I find. Like, they teased a little bit about the Zendikar one, and apparently the flavor's super similar to the original Zendikar and Worldwake, and it's like post Eldrazi, they've kind of dealt with that. So I don't know exactly how they're gonna like be original Zendikar flavor without just rehashing original Zendikar. So I mean, I'll leave the flavor to them, and I'll just ignore the flavor text on the cards.
P. Sands mentions the pre-order sleeve cosmetic for Arena is a gingerbread lady, and he's here for it. And then I mean, I only bring League into this a lot just because, again, it's like the first video game that my wife has got hooked into since she's just been a consistent 100% Tetris player her entire life, and she got hooked on League because, as stereotypical as it sounds, she bonded with the female characters in the game, Miss Fortune, Jinx, and how the characters don't exactly look. I mean, it's girly enough for her. It's not just like half naked chicks like Shadowverse. That's what they do. They have that. They try to get that crowd, and I don't know. My wife gravitated towards these characters, and I think that's something I didn't think about before, about what can draw someone into the game. And because I don't play Magic, I've never played Magic because I love Jace or associated myself with Garrick or any of these characters. I'm like you, I never cared about the lore. I just cared about how good the game is and how good the strategy. So I was blinded to the fact that some players do care, and it opened my eyes just to see when when players don't show Oko to my wife. Got it. When players might be drawn because of the art, because of these other things. I can't relate to that, but now I'm beginning to see that way more. All right. I think we're good. John, anything? What's next for you? What's that big tournament you have upcoming?
Well, we actually have a pretty packed Magic Online weekend. On Saturday, there's a Legacy Mox prelim. I'm probably going to play on it, even though I haven't played Legacy in a while because I have too many qualifying points, as well as the modern format playoffs, which is kind of exciting. I love to qualify for the modern finals with all the other modern ringers. And then on Sunday, there's going to be the modern PTQ as well. So It's going to be packed, and then next weekend it's going to be the Seattle MCQ. So a lot of modern exploration in the next 2 weeks, and hopefully I get to solve the format somewhat.
Right. Elliot, what's the next thing for you?
Well, I was hoping to avoid playing the Sunday MCQ that's modern, but I might be hooked into that. And then the next weekend for me is Syracuse, which is Legacy, so I'll have to find another modern deck to play on the Sunday as well.
Oh, man, just grinding the SCGs, man.
Well, Syracuse is like 4 hours, so how can I turn it down? Unfortunately, there's no Fogo de Chao in Syracuse, but we've already lined up some food. We're in good hands. And I'm currently planning on playing Blue-Black Death Shadow, which I think is one of the best decks in Legacy right now. It kind of preys on all of the combo decks and also has a good rogue matchup. So I'm looking forward to getting Wastelanded out of existence and hating myself.
Where is this, online or in real life, the Sunday one?
This Sunday is online.
Magic Online.
Okay. Well, this weekend is also the FaceToFaceGames.com Edmonton Open, so go check that out if you haven't heard about it yet. And in 2 weeks, in September 14th, that's going to be the MCQ Face-to-Face Games. Toronto is hosting that, so looking forward to seeing who wins that one.
I also believe that in 2 weeks there's going to be that Face-to-Face Victoria, if I'm not mistaken.
It's coming up. It's coming soon. The Face-to-Face Games Victoria Open. Let me pull it up there. It's coming up soon. It's actually, it's the same weekend. It's actually in 2 weeks as well, on the 14th, same weekend as the MCQ in Toronto. Then we follow that, like, September's busy for Face-to-Face Games. The 7th, Edmonton, 14th, Victoria. The 21st, we're hosting both Winnipeg and London. So lots of cool modern tournaments happening around, and be interesting to see the conclusions that John ends up on and what Elliot ends up playing as well. Again, to support the show, like, subscribe, especially subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app. You can go to patreon.com/firststrike as well if you want to support us that way. And I think that's all. Oh yeah, I just wanted Elliot to recap the multiple ways that he's going to eat a shirt before we
Okay.
call it a show.
So if the Royal Scion sees like real play and standard, I'll eat a shirt. And if there's no Elspeth card in the next Theros set, I'll eat 2 shirts. So 3 potential shirts to be eaten. And I'm going to set up a P.O. box so the viewers can send me their shirts to eat.
Well, actually, okay. One last thing. Non-MTG talk. We can get to some other fun stuff. The upcoming NFL season. I haven't restarted the league, but I think I will do it. I'm gonna set up the page tomorrow because it's the start of the opening game is tomorrow. Bears against Green Bay, but the first week of the DFS week league will be on. It's every Sunday. It's only Sunday only, so I don't have to worry about that. But with people getting excited about the NFL season, I think it's going to be a good time to see how many people are interested in running it back. It's going to be something like $25 Canadian to enter, and then it's going to be first, second, third at the end. And basically, you make a team every week, and you get points. And then at the end, first, second, third, win. And I'm going to change the format a little, where if you're going to win part of the prize pool every Sunday if you're the winner of every week. And I think that makes it intriguing for everyone every week. And even near the end of the season, when some people are completely out of it, they can at least win something. And I just wanted to hear Elliot and John, just like Top 8 Magic would talk about, debate over NBA all the time. Some NFL trash talk here. What's a good bet tomorrow night, John? The line you said was -3, +3.
Chicago -3. I think Green Bay is on the road. Aaron Rodgers, week 1 against a younger, inexperienced quarterback. I think they're pretty evenish on the Super Bowl odds as well, and I just think that Aaron. I would just put my money on the good quarterback, very experienced Hall of Famer quarterback. And I know someone in this chat does not agree, but put it on the board because I'm going to win that one.
collectively before the show went live, we could name 3 players on the Green Bay Packers. And I can name the most important player on the Bears, which is Khalil Mack, and he's going to carry them. They're going to win by like 30 or something, I'm sure. But at the very least, they'll cover a 3-point spread.
All right. We're going to have top 5 Throne of Eldraine when the full set is spoiled, and we're going to maybe have some weekly NFL battling going on between Ellie and John that I'm looking forward to. I can't wait for tomorrow night's game. I'm excited. Now with these two guys picking sides, even more excited. Bears against Packers, and to see the First Strike private chat going off when the Bears win by over 30. All right.
I'm confident about it, but I'm not going to eat a shirt.
Follow me on Twitter. Follow these guys on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter if you want more details about how to join the First Strike, KYT, whatever, NFL DFS League, and I will be tweeting about it tomorrow. So with that, good episode. Thank you guys for joining us, and we will talk to you all next week. Peace.